Hello, time for another episode of Cycling Culture Club Connections. This time we sit down with Mitch. Mitch has been one of our contributors since almost the very beginning. He was the guy who I sat down with and picked his brains before any of this happened. He introduced me to many of you who will be listening now, many of our current contributors, and I consider him massively influential in this whole journey. He's a content creator, social media creator, creative, and all-round nice guy. I think you'll love the conversation I had with him. As always, give us a like, follow and subscribe if you're over on YouTube. If you're listening on your favourite podcast platform, give us a follow or a subscribe. It really helps us to grow the reach of this little thing, and share it with a friend. I'm hopeful that we get more and more people listening to this every couple of weeks, and that will help spread this far and wide. So thanks again for listening. Without further ado, into the episode. Cheers. Yo, Mitch, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good.
Good.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. It's been a while since we've properly caught up, so good to finally get you on the podcast. I think I mentioned this to you probably 6 months ago, and it's taken this long to get us both sat here. So I think that shows you the state of play in our lives at the minute. But
It was
better late than never.
Exactly.
No, I appreciate the time. I know you're a busy man, so really appreciate you taking the time to sit and chat with us today. I think you know a bit about the format, and those of you at home will beginning to get used to it. But Mitch, I always like to start with a bit of an intro. Who are you? Where'd you come from? You know, what does cycling mean to you, and how did you get into cycling and to be sat where you are now?
I mean, it's, I think a very common story with a lot of kids that grew up in LA like I did. It's one day I was riding bikes on the beach with my dad, just kind of cruising around doing the beach life thing. And then it got older. I was a teenager, and the fixie community was welcoming me in with open arms. And that's when I got my first fixed gear bike and just kind of like saw all these different types of fixed gear cyclists in one little community. You had your track cyclists, your freestyle cyclists, the small BMX style freestyle. I mean, it was just like so wild seeing this whole community. And from there, I just kind of weaseled my way into, trying out both sides of it. And then I stopped for a while. I stopped because I was competing in college sports, track and field. And then to kind of sum up a few years here, I went through a really a dark place in my life. And a buddy of mine came to me and said, look, you got to try mountain biking. You got to come out here. You got to get on a bike again. A month later, I was working at a bike shop, had a mountain bike, and just, was like living life again. And from there, it got me into road cycling, was riding around, all the hills in Malibu, really just enjoying the freedom that a road bike can bring for you. And then I moved to Germany. And it was, a lot of it was because of cycling as well. From there, I started working actually at Rafa after a few different difficulties with the Ausländerbehörde, the German immigration service. And from there, just kind of built everything up, got into social media, started posting about it some more, and realized that I wanted to do that for work. I wanted to work in social media, not just posting pictures and things, but actually being behind the scenes. So for the next few years, so from 2018 to about 2021, I was just researching, studying, doing School of Hard Knocks, just YouTube everything, articles, research this, do courses, all of it, because I wanted to, get behind the scenes of the marketing world. So fast forward 6 years later, that's what I do now. Full-time marketer, content creator, and built up, quite a few really good partnerships within it all just because I wanted to ride bikes and meet people and have fun and tell cool stories, and then evolve from me telling my story to helping others share theirs. And yeah, so I'm happy where it's come.
It's cool. I mean, did you ever think 6 years ago that you would get to a point where you could do what you loved and get paid for it?
You know, my inspirations in the cycling world anyway were a lot of like the freestyle guys or like the mash guys, you know, Macaframa. I mean, like, you know, the real OG fixed gear world. And I saw that they were traveling around riding bikes. To me, that was the goal. If I can get to Germany, then Germany is surrounded by all these different European countries. And when you're in the US, you're so isolated. It's huge, it's massive, but you are isolated by being in the US. And so you have these different cultures and everything. And so that was kind of the like, I knew that it was possible. Starting to get, you know, sponsored products was kind of the first moment for me when I went, ah, I only have like, I don't know, 1,500 followers or something. And they're sending me free products to post about it and talk about it. You know, what happens when there's a real following here? What happens when people are valuing the opinion that I'm actually giving? And so I kind of knew it was possible. I just didn't know when it was going to happen or how it was going to happen. And
We never do we?
no, and what you want to do with it. You know, I think that's the key question within it all.
Yeah, and I guess for you, I mean, even in the time that we've known each other, how you express yourself personally versus professionally, that's changed quite a lot. And has ebbed and flowed with the change of social media. You went from being very photo heavy to being more video heavy, and now I love indulging in your like coffee morning ASMR videos and that sort of stuff. I dig that shit. But no, just to delve into that a little bit deeper, like you mentioned it a bit offline, but like how has that environment changed over the course of time you've been in this game? Like, what is you've had to sort of roll with the punches as social media as an industry has changed, but how's that affected you personally?
It's a loaded question. Why? Because I think there's the surface level. So social media has changed because it went from very photo heavy to, you know, like I started a blog and thought, okay, I can just post pictures, write a bunch of stuff, and then that's good. Now I'm going to have a blog, right? And then, you know, you post pictures on Instagram, you get a nice camera, you post a nice photo. It's all good. You know, you're getting thousands of likes just because your content quality was above what everybody else had. And then video came in. I mean, it was already there, but like the real hardcore short form came in and you had to do it. You know, you didn't really have a choice. So people that were maybe not the best video editors or didn't have any experience had to learn how to do all that. And I had a bit of experience, but not, uh, I guess, in the same capacity that I do now doing it all. But I think it was great as far as development goes when you want to be a content creator. Um, if you want to be a content creator professionally, I should say, and not just having your own social media accounts and posting content, sponsored content, so on. So I think that has been great because it's really allowed me to develop professionally, um, to build, you know, build myself as a freelancer, as a self-employed person, expat, you know, in another country, which is not easy to do. And then there's maybe the harder side of it, which is getting lost in social media. You know, getting lost in, is this going to pay my bills? Should I focus all my time and energy on this partnership? Should I value this partnership more because it's paying more than maybe this relationship that I already have with this other company? And so you go into this, like, or I went into this moral thing of, okay, well, I don't have, you know, maybe the income I would want here to support a lifestyle that I want to enjoy, which is traveling around riding my bike, exploring Europe. So how do I do that? And I was fortunate to land some pretty good deals that allowed me to travel around, you know, and explore and meet some of the most fascinating people I've ever met in my life, you know. But within it all, there is still that stress of being 24/7. You don't have a day off. And then you take a day off and then you're penalized by the algorithm because you didn't post for a week. So it's it's a very strange place, and I think you really have to commit with everything you've got. Whether you have a full-time job and you want to jump in to socials, or whether you want to go full gas into social media as your full-time gig. Either way, you have to give it everything to get what you want out of it. But key point there would be to just not lose yourself, because yeah, it can really affect your mental state and your relationship, your life, your family, depending on how you position yourself within it all.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's a really important takeaway
Mm-hmm.
for anybody, really. Like, no matter what you do, social media or otherwise, um, even if it's a hobby, even if it's a profession, you have to remember who you are at the core of it. Because so that without that thing, if for whatever reason you can't do it, then you still have an essence of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend, another close friend, who found cycling was so intrinsic and core to his personality. Then he had a bad accident and he couldn't cycle anymore and had a massive identity crisis. Understandably, now fortunately, together we've discovered e-bikes, and e-bikes have allowed him to rediscover cycling, and that's been amazing to see. But it made me really just appreciate that doesn't matter how connected we are to this world, be that professionally, cycling, social media, whatever. There's got to be something real and consistent at the core to come back to always.
100%. And that was basically the last couple of years for me, I would say. I also had a big move from being in Berlin, lots of communities, tons of cyclists everywhere. You had Rafa, you had Stander, you had every bike shop you would need. And then moved to a smaller town, and within that, it was also an identity crisis, so to speak, because I became I'm here living with my girlfriend, so I had that safety net, but you are completely changing everything. And so it was like, wait, I'm no longer riding every other day with all of my friends. There isn't just a group ride I can join every whenever I want now. Okay, I'm in the gym a little bit more. Okay, I'm running a little bit more. Wait, what's happening here? I thought I was a cyclist. You know what I mean? And so that also reflected within social media. I started posting coffee videos. I started posting more, yeah, just different content that my community, my social community, wasn't used to. And it didn't go that well, actually. There were new people that came in for sure, but it definitely took its toll. But in that process, I was realizing that I was actually showing more of my authentic self, which was my whole purpose. I mean, naturally, Mitch is kind of the whole point of the name. Was, yeah, I was finally just posting what I wanted to post, and not being so confined by the different boxes that social media wants to put you in.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because you're on one hand you're a slave to this algorithm that you can't control, you can't see. Most of the time, you can only really guess what's going on, and it changes so often. And that is intrinsically changing your own habits without realizing, right? So, I mean, as somebody with a really quite big following on social, Mitch, how did you find it sort of watching that change in your platform from a content perspective and the results maybe not being what you wanted to be? How did you deal with that sort of mentally and, absorb it in your stride, I guess?
There were a few things that changed. One of them being, I have a feeling that community, like physical community in real life, plays a much bigger part in social media than people make it out to. Meaning, I noticed a big change in my social media when I moved from Berlin to Heidenheim. Berlin's got, I don't know how many tons of people there. Heidenheim is about 40,000. So we're talking very, very small town. Um, no longer was I connecting with new people, meeting new people, therefore potentially increasing following and reach and interest, just general interest, right? But also when you think about location tags and, recognizable things, people were stoked on, oh, look at it, there's beautiful landscape out here, but it wasn't the same. And so I noticed a hit at that point. I also noticed a big hit with the content shift. At that point, you kind of just, yeah, you A/B test how did this work? How did that work? And just, yeah, kind of roll with the punches. If you have partnerships that are dependent on reach, however, that's when things can get sticky, because if suddenly you went from having, videos that were consistently getting tens of thousands of views to a couple thousand, it that shows, or pictures and photos and so on that were getting a lot of reach, and suddenly they weren't anymore. Yeah, it can be it can be tough. And also, I was it last year already, got stuck in a bit of a social media feud with another big creator, a big YouTuber. Just to keep it short and simple, kind of went out there and tried to defend the cyclists in a way that was a bit too strong, to where his whole community, without him telling them to do anything, his whole community came out and just brutally attacked my entire social media following across every single platform. And so I took a break. I was like, you know what? No, this is I just got massively trolled here on socials. I'm good. I'm gonna take a step back, reevaluate all of this, because it's part of it is a job, part of it is just me sharing my life, sharing the things I want to share. So at the end of the day, you really have to try not to take things too seriously when it comes to these big shifts, visibility shifts, reach shifts. I hope that answered the
Yeah, I think you've
question.
nailed it. Actually, I think rolling with the punches, is just part and parcel of the game. And I think there's a certain part that comes down to just accepting that I want to post what I want to post, and I want to represent what I want to represent. And it's a shame stuff like the feud came about and causes like negative association.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's all past now. I haven't seen anything about it in a while.
It's there, but it's so far beyond, like, when you realize like, I don't want to get name calling or anything like that, but when you realize how close-minded some people in the world can be, it allows you to move past things faster. When you understand that your goals, your priorities are so much more important than a keyboard warrior with nothing to do on the internet but talk trash. Like, it's come
Yeah,
on, dude.
it's a shame.
you know.
It's a shame already that people feel, well, we all know this, but people feel like they can say what they like behind a keyboard. And I think that's unfortunately one of the nastier side effects of being, a prevalent social media profile, right? Like people feel like they can say whatever they want because they don't have to be held accountable. Anyway, it's a deep rabbit hole that I think we could get into and spend
Yeah, sure.
spend a long time on. But
Sure.
um, I guess I'm particularly interested in your journey from where you spent your childhood in LA and to sort of where you ended up in Berlin and elsewhere in Germany. Like that experience is going to be really unique, and I think that's what I'd love to sort of spend some time on. Like, your experience as an American in Germany. I'm sure that has its interesting scenarios, and as a person of color as well, and as a black creator as well in Germany. Those three things are going to integrate you into different communities, different scenarios. So yeah, talk to me a bit about that. Did it that big move? How did that affect you? Was it smooth?
I mean, to give a bit of context, I wasn't, like, big in any communities in LA before I left, like road cycling communities or anything. I knew a lot of people, but I wasn't doing any of the big group rides or anything like that, for no particular reason. Just wasn't. I also, oddly enough, at the time, felt a bit excluded by that world of Rafa, because to me, it was still that like next level of road cyclist, super, shaved legs, fancy kit, da 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 da, the whole thing. I am that guy now. I shave my legs, I wear nice fancy kit, have nice bikes, and so on. But I don't. It's not about judging the people that don't have all the fancy stuff, And so I felt like I was away from it then as well. Moving to Germany, however, created a very interesting place because when I went to Rafa in Berlin, the characters that I met there were all so unique, and some of them had hairy legs. Some of them were short, tall, but big, small. It was like, whoa, what is this community? Um, and that is where I actually started to feel more included in the cycling world, which I found odd, but it's also because I was kind of, as I like to say, just becoming a cyclist as I was leaving the States. So I feel like I only really became a proper cyclist as I came to Germany and started to ride more and meet new people. Um, where it was difficult as an American, as an English speaker, was with the language. Berlin is amazing. It's super international. People are from everywhere. 99% of people speak English. When I first came, though, I was in the south of Germany for about 3-4 months. It was small. Nobody spoke English. It was rough. Immigration offices, extremely difficult. I mean, learning new signs, learning the way the road systems work, the bike paths. You probably shouldn't ride on the street here because this is a big highway. I mean, we do it in the States as well, but you just have to learn all these new norms of a proper foreign country. But the other side of it was, although I was feeling a bit more comfortable becoming a cyclist in Germany, I also noticed that I didn't see anybody else that looked like me. And it wasn't weird at first because I think just as a person of color, you're a bit more conscious of that when you're going into different places. But when every group ride was like, just, yeah, I mean, 30 plus, 40 plus, Caucasian Europeans, like, I don't know, it never became a problem, but I was kind of like, okay, where is everybody? Like, thought this was a sport that everybody was doing. I mean, LA, like, clearly there were tons of black people riding bikes, but I mean, gotta mention the the key inspirations then and now, but Legion, doing what they did and where they are now, and the multiple teams, it's like I was watching all that going, oh, I would love to see that here. um I did end up meeting one person in particular, Kudus, shout out to Kudus. And that was like, cool, there's another black guy riding bikes in Berlin. And so there, you start to meet different people. Of course, within that whole time period, we connected as well. Of course, not in Berlin, Germany, but overseas. It was never like I never found any problems with it all. I just always wished that more people would show up. I worked with another guy, another black guy, actually at Rafa for a while, and at that time we were looking into, okay, there's 2 black guys here working at this location. How many more are there in the whole company? And it was like, that's when we really started going, oh, wait a minute, there's a discrepancy in what's going on in the cycling industry. Not just here in Germany, not just in the UK, but like across the globe. So, it opened up a lot of opportunities. For example, with during COVID, we had Clubhouse, and then we did a lot of the D&I, diversity and inclusivity talks. I got a lot of brands involved, which was amazing. I mean, that's kind of when we actually really dove into these types of conversations back a few years ago.
Yeah, we did. What do we do? We did bring your own coffee, right, for Zwift on Zwift. Yeah, that was around that time, and it's interesting.
Josh, all them.
Yeah, exactly. I still, really close to those guys and stuff. But I think there's an interesting point there of inflection where We had the unfortunate incident of George Floyd, and the whole industry and the whole world spiked interest in D&I, and for a while, they all, the whole industry rode that wave and showed an increased interest. And now what I'm finding, and what a lot of other people are finding across multiple industries, is that interest is waned. And I think that's part of the reason why we're sat here today, is that I really feel like there's an opportunity to do better. There's no real space for this spike in interest and then this drop off. Like, there needs to be consistent work done in this space to improve exactly what you've described, which is turning up on a group ride and being the only black person there, or the only person of color there. Like, in the 21st century, that just shouldn't be a thing. Now, obviously, it is. So how do we sort of move that dial bit by bit to improve upon that? And I think that's a big question. But I think it's particularly interesting that you've had a very similar experience to the one I had here in the UK, and the one that even others have had all over the world. There's contributors who from all over the world as part of CCC, and they've all had a largely similar experience. The interesting point actually is the guys from LA. So I've had both Alonso and Alvin on recently. Both of those guys have had a marginally better experience coming into cycling. Both of them had found groups in LA that were a bit more diverse than those that we're used to. And I think that's really interesting, because you mentioned Legion, but the part they played in doing that is probably even bigger than we already know.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Are there any figureheads? Are there any groups? How is it in Germany now? You moved there 6 years ago. Has it moved on at all?
Not as much as I would have liked to see. I mean, I also wouldn't, this sounds weird to say it, but I also wouldn't go, for example, and say, all right, I want to organize a diversity group ride of sorts. You know what I mean? Because then we start going back into the topics that we spoke about during, the clubhouse days of, well, then aren't you inherently excluding another group of people, right? And so it's really difficult to search for that level of diverse group. I mean, in particular, where I live, of course, it's 10 times harder, small town, but you do see people, and it's not just about Black people, but diverse people as a whole. And yeah, I don't know what to do anymore as far as bringing, like, to pull the people out, and say, like, hey, look, it's cool. Like, it's, if you're the only person there in the ride, like, don't trip. There's nothing to worry about, If you've never picked up a road bike, if you're still wearing running shoes with flat pedals on a road bike, like, come out, just, I mean, as long as it's not a drop ride or something crazy, but, like, come out and just do it. And reach out. And that's where social media comes back in. The amount of people that I've met through social media where it was like, hey, what's up? You want to meet up? I think that can be more empowering to allow people of color to make themselves, for lack of better words, just being, and being a Black cyclist, being a person of color as a cyclist, or any sport, as well. But yeah, I unfortunately haven't seen too much of a change in Germany. I mean, what can you do,
Well, on your
What can
own,
you do?
very little, right?
Yeah.
But just being part of this community here is a start, right? Like, and I think we've only started to scratch the surface, but if you can connect with another 5 individuals in Germany because of Cycling Culture Club, then suddenly you begin to build this sort of this map across your country, right? So I think that's the whole idea with this. But I do think there's something interesting you said about, like, that community, that in-person meetup, that ride, that coffee shop meet, whatever it is. Like, finding that human connection is okay on social, but there's definitely more to be done in person. And I almost feel like the next stage of development for this could be, having signposts, having heroes like Cycling Culture Club heroes in these territories to help run rides and be a beacon for their communities. And I think to your point about creating a diversity ride, I don't think that's necessarily the right angle, but what you could have is somebody that helps get more diverse individuals to a more general community ride. I'll use like Eat Sleep Cycle in Girona as an example.
Mm-hmm.
It's a local cycling hub, one of 10 in Girona probably, but you could say have someone like Marty. I don't know if you know Marty.
Yes. Don't know him personally, but yes, I know who he is.
Someone like Marty, someone like you, someone like me in the UK, whatever, who rings up all the black people that they know and go, we're going to show up to this community ride on this day at this time and be the anchor. Because what you get then is you get those 3 or 4 people all on a ride, and they see each other and they meet each other, and then you might ride past another group with another couple of guys, and before you know it, you get a bigger contingent of diverse individuals. It's all easier said than done, right, Mitch? But
Yeah,
ultimately,
sure.
it's like, bits and pieces to be done, maybe.
I mean, that's also what I was going to say to add to it is that Cycling Culture Club can inherently bring that all together, and other companies that are out there pushing for diversity and inclusivity across the cycling space. When you realize that there are actually people there, but everybody's kind of, hiding in their cave, riding their bikes and just living their life without actually searching for it. I mean, who knows how many other potential black cyclists there are in Heidenheim? I have no idea. If you're out there, say what's up.
Come and holler at. I think that's half the battle. How do you get the word out? And I think, hopefully this podcast is a start to that, but it will be finding, that one small next step, maybe, that one thing that you can move the dial towards, which for someone like me is quite frustrating because I'm like, why is it so slow? Like, surely there's a bigger way that we can reach people. But yeah, I don't know. It's not getting discouraged by the small steps. And the guest previous to you, actually, a guy called Tokes, who runs Black Unity Bike Ride, he was saying that, if you can encourage people to take that one small step, maybe it is dragging that bike out of the garage and joining a group ride, or attending a big sort of mass participation ride, or whatever it might be. If you can show them that that's possible, and that even there's one other person who looks like them there, you might keep them in cycling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a tricky one, but definitely one to keep fighting the good fight on, for sure.
100%. And it's never going to end. As long as we keep kitting up and going out there and riding our bikes, just the simple fact that our presence is out there, showing us doing what we love, I think it's not more than enough. It's obviously not enough, but, that alone can make that impact. And, I always wonder, whenever I see a dude out here riding a bike, just commuting to work or something, and I'm like, man, I wonder if he would ever consider getting on a road bike, but it really would have to be forced in a place like here, other big cities, Freiburg, Berlin. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'd also have to look at where some of the bigger black populations are in Germany. That could be an interesting
Yeah,
research.
yeah, I don't know actually. I've heard on the grapevine that places like Hamburg are, a little bit more diverse and stuff like that, and obviously Berlin, but the big centres. But yeah, that could be an interesting thing to look at, right? And yeah, I'm just going to pick on something you said a few minutes ago about um, connecting on social media and the impact that makes.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience, what part has social media got to play in the growth of cycling?
I mean, the growth of cycling, I think, one, had a huge surge already within the COVID time. The industry boomed across the boards. People that never even thought about riding a bike were suddenly riding bikes. A lot of that as well due to social media. What they were seeing people out riding bikes. Oh, well, that looks interesting. Let me go try it. Right? You fast forward now to where we're at, and it's weird because I'm seeing a lot more people actually moving away from riding bikes full time and into, having a more, let's call it, healthy balance of different sports and ways to just stay healthy. So I think right now it's really about following the people that you are also inspired by. For the people that want to get into cycling, though, it's, I mean, the only tip I would say with the social world is like, follow the pros, watch their Stravas, do your thing, track every little watt and every data that they put out there. But just don't forget that the people that are out there riding 20, 30,000 kilometers a year, 10,000 kilometers a year, like, they have that because that's what their either job or main hobby or whatever else is, that's their thing. If you have a full-time job, if you have kids, if you have this, if you have that, and you still want to ride a bike, don't be discouraged about it, no matter what social media is showing, no matter what fancy Dura Ace carbon this and that whatever bike they're riding. Like, just pick up a bike and go and do it. So I think it would be to take, social media can have a huge impact as long as there is an aspect of gratitude that's being maintained from the people that have more privilege within the social media cycling world. And there is the authenticity that's coming through it as well. The more, let's just say, sponsored athletes, whether it be on my scale, social media, to full-time pro, I think the more that we can share the beauty of cycling, for what it is, and not just, hey, look at these new wheels, or hey, look at this new bike, hey, look at this new thing, but like, this is how cycling makes me feel, really back to the roots of it all. I think the better chance we have of increasing the amount of people on bikes across the globe, because it's, again, just that simple, back to the roots. Why did we start this in the first place?
Yeah, that's a really perfect answer. You've probably stolen the thunder for my hidden last question, to be fair, which I'll come to. But I'm just intrigued by the potential of social media and the essence that it provides for connection. I'm still maybe naively confident that it's a useful tool for making semi-meaningful connections with people. I mean, you and I, after all, know each other through social. There are several dozen other individuals who I'd count among the same, who I know/don't know, but are familiar with through social. And then when you do meet eventually, you're like, oh shit, you're actually shorter than I thought, or taller. But nevertheless, some important connections there, and particularly in our community of underrepresented cyclists, it feels like in the short term, where we can't solve some of those bigger societal gaps and issues, that connections via social in communities like this one, but also the many others doing great work across Europe and the US, are important for building that connection over a distance. And yeah, I don't know what you think about that, but whether you still think there's value in that sort of, I don't know if the word is
building
top
relationships
level.
through social media.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. 100%. I mean, I reconnected with the LA community, for example, only because I was present on social media overseas, looking at them going, why the hell didn't I join that community when I was there? So every time I visit, I try to, get back in and meet with at least one person, to like maintain those connections. Because social media is social media. We're in a digital world, we can't escape it. We're literally having this whole conversation through cameras and screens right now, no matter how much I would love to be sitting in an office, doing this side by side, but it will help as long as we use it to help. It's that simple. As long as we keep maintaining these connections, it's so easy to let a message, which Sorry, by the way, letting messages slide down in the inbox, which I'm a culprit of doing far too often, unfortunately. But, you know, as long as you get back to these things, and get back to the people that are there having that connection with you, I think it's all good. I mean, I connect with a few different people, a few different black cyclists, I should say, from the States. UK as well, like really all over the place. And it's that alone makes me feel more welcome, more accepted, more included into the whole world of cycling, because we're all still maintaining these, fractaled connections across the globe digitally, albeit, but, enough to go like, yeah, cool. I see you. Like I got a message the other day from actually, well, yeah, doesn't matter. But I got a message the other day. I was shared in a story alongside another black cyclist, and he messages me and he's like, "Yo, dude, you were shared up there too," And it's like, it's so small, And I have to use air quotes with that because it's a story. It's there for 24 hours and it's gone, But when you're on these big accounts, and this is actually a point I forgot to mention earlier, is as far as representation goes and the power of social media within it all. But another black creator is being posted on a very large account showing black representation, then goes and messages another black creator that didn't know he was also being shared on that account, and boom, connection, right? And that alone is one of the goals that I had, even though it was kind of subconscious at first. But the more partnerships you have, the more modeling gigs you can get to show yourself as that representation through the media. That's a whole other side of things, So if Black Cyclist comes in, starts social media channel, and is intentionally going, I'm going to make a difference by being the face of these companies because they're not being represented, which is inherently something that I have been doing in Germany, and also as an American English Black, it's like, it's really been a journey to see how some of these ideals within very, very big companies have started to shift. I can't say I was the reason for it, but I know that I played a part in expanding that openness. So I think the maintaining the visibility and the connection through social, sharing these stories with each other is 100% important. I don't think it'll ever change.
Let's hope it doesn't.
Better.
Until we teleport, there's no better way.
Sure.
So yeah, that brings me to the final question, which I ask everybody who sits here, and that is, if you could give one piece of advice to somebody from an underrepresented group to get them into cycling or keep them in cycling, what would it be?
Wow. Just because you love it doesn't mean you have to do it every day.
Love that.
And
so true.
The reason for that is because I love cycling with every cell in my body, but I got lost in just being a cyclist in that world and started to, push to the side everything else that I also loved and enjoyed, as far as sports and fitness goes and other hobbies and things. And the joy for cycling came back when I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to ride every single day. I don't have to do all this stuff every single day or perform at the highest level just so I can, be in the top 10 on a group ride. Like, what? Really? That's, where my head was at? Like, nah. It really will help you maintain that love for the cycling. Take a break for a week, come back to it. You're going to ride your bike and go, damn, this thing is fun. And that's how I feel every single time I go back outside. Right now it's on the trainer, so, it's the feel isn't the same, but I don't love it any less. So that would be my tip.
Perfect. Yeah, it's something I've adopted myself. I went through a bit of a burnout phase a few years ago, trying to race doing badly, like putting all this pressure on. Probably took a couple of months off, probably, and then came back to it. You know, I don't I record on Strava, but I don't really pay any attention to it. I go out and ride when I feel like it. If I don't feel like it, I don't go. Don't force myself out like I used to. And I think there's something really interesting in that, because it doesn't make you any less of a cyclist. It doesn't make you any less of a person. You're just listening to yourself, listening to your body, and that's the healthiest way to be, I think.
100%. Take the pressure off and just do it because you want to do it. I mean, unless, you have obligations, of course, you got to check those off the list too. But, do it because you want to do it, not because somebody else told you have to.
Right. What a profound and eloquent way to end the podcast, Mitch. Thank you.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me. And I look forward to seeing all the other guests that come on here as well.
Yeah, me too. I really am excited about where it's going to go. And I've got you to thank for a lot of those connections. In the early days, you connected me with a lot of good people. Some of them are now part of what we're doing over here. So, yeah, big thanks to you, my guy. Glad to get you on eventually. And no doubt we'll see more of you across Cycling Culture Club in the coming months.
Especially now that we've got the podcast out of the way.
yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, until next time.
Sounds
See you soon.
Brother. Ciao.